Well, hello, everyone. This is Jefferson Big J Kelly with Beyond Track Podcast. And tonight we're going to be talking about a very special fan film that was just released today. First, I want to do some introductions. And this is going to be for the film. And Josh, you might have to help me with the pronunciation here.
I
La
don't know what
Morte
it
de la
is.
Guerre? Don't know. Okay, it's
La Mort de Guerre.
The death of war.
Yes. The Death of War.
gotcha. Yeah, is that
Just
what's
make
the
it
word I'm
easy on
looking for?
yourself.
Latin?
French. French.
French.
French.
Okay.
La
All
Mort
right.
de Guerre.
Gotcha. Tonight, we've got some very special sponsors for this live stream. Neutral Zone Studios, it's Ray Tessie. No Budget Productions, Vance Major. Bilk Fair Productions, Frank Parker Jr. Harris Film Productions, Steve Harris. Commodore Productions, Jim Williams. Nature's Hunger, Joe Cepeda. Fan Film Factor, Jonathan Lane. Airy Studios, Alec Peters. NerdTube, Jason Eastman and Zamir Patwa. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly. And Avalon Universe, Joshua Irwin. And from the film itself, Joshua Irwin, co-director and director of photography. CAITLYN Bailey, associate producer, and Commander Dee Dee Mason. Frank Parker Jr. and his wig as Commander Tamar. Vance Major is Eric Menard, and hopefully he will be able to join us here in a little bit. And Jonathan Lane, who's creative consultant on the film. So everyone, welcome tonight. I really appreciate you joining me to talk about this film and to be here in support of Josh. And Josh, I just want to tell you, another great film. I don't know how you do it. Knocking out of the park, man. It was very good. Really enjoyed the story, cinematography, all of that. It is definitely another top-notch endeavor from you. So I'm glad that we were able to come here tonight to sit down and do this live stream and basically talk to you about this film and talk to those here that are part of the chat that were in the film, part of the production as well. So Joshua, CAITLYN, you two are the guests of the hour. So why don't you start us off?
Well, if you want to ask how I did it, the person you should ask how I did it is Jonathan.
Oh yeah,
Because
don't we give him enough credit?
He's always got the front row seat for all of my calamities.
In fact, actually, I didn't realize this was a live cast, a live stream. I thought it was an intervention for Josh. He's working too hard. So Josh, we need to talk to you. We're all friends here. But no, Josh has been working ridiculously hard on this, and I know this because every time he worked hard on it again, he would send me the latest iteration, and I think I've watched this fan film now about 27 times. So
that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's the creative consultant credit, because you can get blinders on, man. You get so focused. There's a point where when you're editing a film like this, you lose all perspective because you're so in the details of it. Like, I'm watching this film, I don't even know if it's any good. I'm just like, and so I always have somebody or a couple of people that I can have take a look at it and say, hey, what do you think? And that sort of thing. And that it helps to have a perspective outside of yourself. And Jonathan's definitely been one of the people that's been helping me with that for the past couple of years. He's pretty good at it. I mean, he was so detail oriented on Interlude. That's a nice way of putting it.
that's a nice way of putting obsessive
I knew
compulsive
that he would
disorder.
be brutally honest if I showed him an edit.
Oh, and
hold on, I clicked on the wrong spot on the mic there. It's better to have that. Sorry, getting a little bit of feedback. I'll see if I can find out who that is. I think it's a much better thing to get the feedback that if something works or not, to get an appropriate guidance on something, because I can tell you there's nothing more dangerous than to always be told looks good, sounds good, and I've encountered that before, and it's really made me gear more towards talking to someone that is not going to be afraid to tell me if something doesn't work,
Mhm.
doesn't look good, doesn't sound good. Um, because if you don't get that, what can happen is you put something out there that could not be good at all, be trash, be bad, and it can just tank your reputation right away. Um,
And if people don't tell you while you're working on it, they'll tell you in the comments.
That's
oh
yeah.
for sure.
yes,
Big time.
yeah, you're going to find out in the comments. So it would be nice to know before
Oh
it
yeah.
comes out than later. And it's a good thing you had Jonathan in your corner to critique and help along with that, because it does pay off. It really does. And I know that there was a comment that you made when you made the post on Facebook was at some point you just have to put the paintbrush down.
Yeah.
You've got to put it
No,
down.
you really do, and it harkens back to when I was working on Doomsday. I thought we were just going to get savaged when we released Doomsday. I thought people were going to hate it, and so I was just working on it obsessively, trying to make it like the best it could be. And there was a point where Ray Tessie called me on the phone. He's like, "Hey there, Cecil B. DeMille. All right, the movie's good enough," and that was it. He was like, just cut it out and let's release it. And to my surprise, man, it was the most popular Tales from the Neutral Zone ever, and people loved it. I don't know why, but people loved it.
I mean, you could still be sitting here editing Crisis for all we know, if you didn't finally just decide you just need to
Yeah,
give birth to the baby and hope that
yeah.
people like it.
The old saying is that art is never complete, only abandoned. And
Hmm.
that's certainly true, because I was looking at this thinking I could have worked on it for another week and a half. I could have just kept going if I wanted to. I could sit down right now, watch it, make 10 notes. And I had to kind of force myself to stop and go, well, nope, I'm cutting myself off. So, but I'm still very, very proud of it. And we had a great time making it. It was kind of, I guess, our reward. We shot that whole fan film in 2 days.
Oh, the entire thing, 2 days.
Mhm. two
Wow,
days.
that is
And
We
that was
good.
we
and that
went
was the
down.
only thing. Yeah.
We did our wrap for Avalon, where we shot 2 days. One day was Crisis. One day was Once and Future Captain, and then the Monday Tuesday was this film was Death of War, and I guess the whole journey started with Ray Tessie, and that's who I want to talk about first, is Ray, because Ray took it upon himself when STC ended to be the person who stepped up and took the responsibility to preserve this studio, so that the fan film community could have it, so that more stories could be told and more productions could be made. And he and I had a little bit of a misunderstanding really early on, but once we got on the phone, man, he shot straight with me. I admitted what I did wrong. He admitted what he did wrong, and we were friends again. 10 seconds later, he says to me, "Hey, come. Would you mind coming down and helping out with Doomsday?" And so I went and helped with Doomsday, and that started as just me filming it. But then he had like studio producer or studio manager responsibilities come up, and he's like, "Hey, I gotta go take care of this stuff. Hey, can you just finish this movie for me?" And so I took over Doomsday like a third of the way through and finished it while he was like being the studio manager. And the thing about Ray is that he's always defied the odds. I didn't think that Neutral Zone would last this long, because when I first went down there, it's like, man, this is such a big thing for somebody to really take on. And it was like you didn't think anybody could keep it going for 5 years, but we're almost 6.5 now, and Ray's still finding ways to keep it alive. He's always beat the odds on stuff, and it's like, I've wondered how he hasn't had a heart attack or a stroke or something and died from all of the stress of managing that studio. And so I was just like, hey, making films is also really, really stressful. So why take on all of that? And I said, just let me help you with the films. And he was awesome enough to accept that and to say, yeah, come help me out. When we shot this film, Ray was out of vacation time and stuff because we had shot The Lost Starship a week before this. So it's like, the Lost Starship's been out for like, 6 months, 7, 8 months now. And we shot this film a week later. And so Ray had been there for that. He'd been there for Avalon. And he finally just handed me the keys to the studio and said, hey, I got to go back home. And Tyler and I ran the studio for 2 days with him in Boca Raton. And it's like, how amazing is that he had the faith in us. I mean, what an honor to just let us take charge of the studio and make a film with him not even there. It was really an amazing experience. And because Avalon was so intense, shooting this film was like our reward. Like, this was not an intense shoot. It was 2 days, but it was like 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. days where we just took our time and made a film, and we had a wonderful time doing it.
Caitlyn would like to hear from you. Tell us about your experience with another film involving Josh and Jonathan and all the other familiar faces. Oh, you're muted, Caitlyn.
To be honest
There
with
you go.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay. It's always a privilege and an honor to work with everybody from the filming community, to be honest with you. I mean, I always thank them for always including me, or at least thinking about me in the group. I really can't say how grateful I am to be a part of it, to be honest with you. I can.
Well, I'm sure
I
it's
always have a lot of fun. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I'm sure it's always a pleasure to get that call of, we're doing another film. Need you to come in and shoot with us.
Yes, it definitely is a great surprise, and I just enjoy every single minute of it.
Well, that's
she's
great.
Got another one coming up not too long after this. So she's working a lot in fan film. She got her fan film start in the Federation Files. Shout out to Glenn Wolfe and Dan Reynolds. That's where she got her start. And she and I had worked on films, just indie films up here, and then ran into each other again on fan films. And it was just a perfect fit to have her be Tyler's doppelganger in the Prime universe.
And Frank, you're no stranger to being on Star Trek sets and doing filming as well. So, and I'm glad that we got to see the wig. Do you have that with you right now? We've got to put that tribble on the screen. Oh, you're muted, big boy.
And Frank is muted.
He'll go get that wig for us.
Yeah, that's great. We always like an appearance from the wig.
The wigs are almost becoming as famous as Jim's alien masks.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much, ain't it? Yeah.
We all have to have that prop, the prop that you're known for. Frank, you got to unmute yourself. Or here, I'll do it. No, can't unmute because
Mute yourself, Frank. You're muted.
Does anyone know sign language? You got to unmute yourself.
Can't hear you.
There we go. Okay.
Somehow he's still muted.
Yeah, we'll get him. We'll get him eventually.
Technical difficulties with Frank.
It's a Romulan thing. Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's damn Romulans. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, Josh, is I saw this in the live chat during the film. You talked about the lighting. There was something I caught there, because one of the things that I always like to see when I'm watching Star Trek films, whether it's you know, the CBS proper episode of the show or these fan films, I like the aesthetic of not dark, but I guess for lack of a better term, the modern, like today's modern lighting of things are, you know what I mean? And you mentioned incandescent lighting, and you're kind of pushed outside of your envelope with that. Can you expand on that some more?
Well, what I'm talking about is actually the opposite of what you're talking about there, and
Okay.
that was how
I was driving when I was watching it, and I kind of glanced over and saw it. So I apologize.
How I pushed myself out of my comfort zone was a lot of times on Avalon or other fan films, I use some of the same techniques that they use in a lot of modern shows or modern Star Trek or whatever, and that's to use a lot of, like, what I'm lighting myself with now is modern LED light panels or
Do you hear
cop
me
lights
now?
with
Yeah, we can hear you now, Frank.
boxes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, grid and modifier and all that kind of stuff, and then you can do all kinds of colors and neat silly stuff that you used to not be able to do. Well, in the 1960s, they shot and lit Star Trek a completely different way than they do now. Like, if you look at Strange New Worlds and you look at the original Star Trek, the lighting scheme of those two shows is diametrically different. I mean, they're as different as lighting could get. Strange New Worlds is very soft. Again, a very modern look. Whereas TOS, what that is essentially it's film noir with color. That's how that's always been described, as film noir with color. And now you can never fully replicate the look of TOS because you're not going to be using the same type of instruments that they had in the 60s. You're not shooting with the same kind of, they're doing celluloid 50-speed film, all that kind of stuff. But you can get close. You can use the same type of instruments, but maybe not the same ones. Like, if you went on set during the original Star Trek, you'd see 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 watt Fresnels. Here we were using 650, 300, and 150 watt Fresnels, but it was still incandescent tungsten Fresnels, the same style of instrument. And so you do the same kind of things. You light from angles, you use a lot of negative fill and cutters, and what you get is a very harsh look, which is, again, very different than what we normally do on Avalon, but it's very TOS. And I figured since we're doing Prime Universe, and since they had all of that incandescent lighting down there, why not do it that way? And Scott Johnson and Zeke Perry helped us out with the lights for the 2 days that we were shooting down there, and did an excellent job helping us out.
Does the LED lighting give you more of an even light? Because the way I picture LED lighting is you don't have that bulb. Like I've got these lights in front of me here that are the the photography on the stand, big square that points. Well, there's a bulb in there, so there is like a center point,
right,
where that light is. So there's an intensity more in the center. Whereas, and correct me if I'm wrong, with LED, it's even all the way through the physical bulb itself.
You just have so much more control over LEDs.
Okay.
You can change the color of the light. You can make it, party gel colors. You can make it. You can use color, different color temperatures from warm to cool color temperatures. Soft white, warm white, cool white, daylight. You can dim them. And the major difference between the two types of lights are that incandescent light, 70% of the energy that's generated by the instrument is dissipated as heat. So if you're pulling, 600 watts worth of electricity, like 500 or 450 of that is just going up as heat. And then, 20, 30% of that is light, but it's really bright, really harsh from a small little filament. And that's what makes that light so harsh. Well, because LEDs are the opposite of that. There's almost no heat on an LED. You can put all kinds of different modifiers on them, soft boxes and all kinds of stuff to make them even softer. So there's just so much more versatility with LEDs. That's why people use them. They use so much less energy. Like when we were using the incandescent lights, we were blowing breakers constantly down there. So there's a trade-off. The set gets hot. You blow breakers. The light can be really harsh. But then if harsh is the art, you know, if you don't know how to use a harsh light like that, it'll just look harsh. But if you know how to shape it and make it into art, then you can do something with it.
Right. So is this true? I think I forgot, was this the film you and I were talking about it at one point? I can't recall which interview or on what occasion, but you had to do post-processing or post-effects on Frank, on his. Now, the GPU power it would take to make Frank look decent, I'm sure is just, you have to have like a rendering farm. And now, Frank, you're a good looking guy, but I mean, you know, you have to throw in some extra video cards there.
So, no, what
And you're muted again.
Was
Yeah,
we're gonna have to start reading lips.
Both he and Skip were wearing the ears. They were wearing prosthetics.
Yes, we
So
were.
but
There
the
you go,
ears
Frank.
were
Let's
like
hear
a
from
weird color. They were like almost brown. They were really dark brown because we ran out of makeup. I didn't know we'd run out of makeup, or I would have just sent somebody to Walmart to get some. But that we were out of makeup and out of time, and so both sets of ears were like a dark brown and didn't even match their skin. And so in post, we used the AI roto brush to change the color of the ears to make them match the skin tones. And then like Skip was very pink on the day. He looked really, really pink. And so it was like Romulans aren't going to look pink because they don't have red blood. So I kind of used the roto brush on his entire face. And after I matched the ears to his face, I made the whole thing just a slight shade of green. And I did the same thing with Frank, but a little less because Frank wasn't as pink as Skip was. So yeah, it's funny. I was interviewing Doug Drexler a few months back and he was like, wow, it's so neat. Like you can fix makeup in post now. Like, and he was talking about real Star Trek. He was like, we can fix Michael Dorn's makeup when it's not quite there. And it's like, we can do that here too. I mean, the democratization of filmmaking is like that. You have all kinds of things that you could do now that you never could back in the day. I bring this up a few times. I read this article once that when they made Star Trek First Contact, there was a limit placed on the number of phaser beams they could do in the entire movie because doing one phaser beam cost $10,000.
What?
And now I can do a phaser beam in 20 minutes in After Effects.
Oh my God.
It's interesting that you say that, Josh, because when we shot last weekend, Donna had my ears on because she couldn't find hers. And so I've got that same problem with that brown color. And what it was is I think the person we had do it that day wasn't quite used to doing the ears. And that's why it turned out that brown. And I'm glad that that I just found out how you corrected that, because we're going to have to correct her ears. So I'm going to have to get with you on that. Now, the day before, when we come off the transporter, that was a whole different situation.
Yeah, that was a different day.
Yeah, we had we had a professional doing it at that point.
Yeah, basically what Frank's talking about there is on Sunday, we were shooting The Once and Future Captain, and there's a sequence where there's a Romulan invasion, right? Where the Romulans board a ship, and there's a whole bunch of them, like a whole gaggle of Romulans and Klingons. And we had a makeup artist who came out for that, who was really good. And he was doing everybody's makeup, and he did a superb job with Frank and all his henchmen. And I was like, while we got Frank and the henchmen there, let's just go ahead and get that transporter shot. We just, after we got some of the other shots we needed, we went to the transporter room and got that part where they beamed in, right? And so when Alex, that's Tuesday when Alex and all the security guards are there pointing the phasers. And then when Frank beams in, it's Sunday. And then we just, we ran out of makeup. And so we didn't have the supplies for the next day, which is nobody's fault. It just happens because we were running a skeleton crew. We had like 70 people on set on, Saturday, Sunday, and we had like 15 people on set Monday, Tuesday. But it worked out. It's in one little tidbit you'll notice if you look is that some of the same people who are red shirts in the background behind Alex are Romulans behind Frank. You have to look, but it's that we pulled a Larry Fleming there, and so you have some of the same people as Romulans that are red shirts.
Well, your helm officer and was it Christine? Was that her name? The one that was in the engineering room? She had her makeup off that day.
Oh, Kelly.
Yeah,
Kelly.
Yeah.
Who's in the chat? Yeah, Kelly. And she was the one doing most of the makeup, and she stepped up. I mean, she really did.
Yeah, I know. She did a great job for her. Yeah.
I loved her alien character. And
her alien character was amazing.
Kelly's watching, and I know that Kelly's watching, and I just want to say you also knocked it out of the park. Both in acting and just that amazing makeup is incredible.
Does the alien race have a name? Because some people were asking during the live stream, and I honestly didn't know. I thought it was maybe a variant of a Kashian or something. I mean,
she did the Cetacean like for Dreadnought Dominion, and then in Red Shirt Irregulars. So she has actually done that makeup, but this is something different. I told her, like, you should be the only person to name this alien because you invented it. I think she has a name. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but she did that she did that makeup 3 days in a row because she's that character in Crisis. She's that character in Once and Future Captain, and she's that character in Death of War. And we got to day 4, and I said, I don't think you should keep doing this to yourself. Like, just be a normal person on Tuesday, and we'll just make you a different character. And she came to set, and she's got this really kind of curly, wavy blonde hair, and she looked like a friend of mine named Cynthia, who's a good friend of mine that I work with, and so I was like, why don't we just call her character Cynthia? And so like I just kind of had Alex improv calling her Cynthia as a shout out to my friend, and so Kelly got to play 2 characters in the film, which I thought was really neat.
Kelly says that she had never came up with a species name, so may I suggest the Hajians?
Oh,
why not?
Okay.
Nerdtubians sounds pretty good,
Oh yeah. Take it.
How about the Filtarians?
Or the Cheetos.
Ooh, the Cheetarians.
Man, Kelly's great. She's one of those people that every time you go down to Neutral Zone Studios, she's there. She's always playing a part. She's always doing some crazy makeup. She's always having a good time, always had a smile on her face, always helps out behind the camera in any way that in any way that she can. A lot like Caitlyn. Caitlyn was, Caitlyn's the main villain of the movie. I don't know if you watch it and get that, but Caitlyn's the villain. The Romulans are not the villain in this movie. Caitlyn is the foil. Caitlyn is the antagonist.
Interesting.
Because she doubts the captain.
Yeah.
And so the battle that the captain is fighting is
you.
not really against the Romulans. The battle that the captain is fighting is against her own first officer and against Starfleet and the people who doubted her as a captain. And so this is where she proves herself. So Caitlyn's not only pulling off this, it's harder to play the bad guy sometimes than the hero. And so Caitlyn's not only just doing this, she's like managing the production off camera. And when I saw the way that she performed behind the scenes during that week of shooting, I wish that I had her there every day I've ever filmed from the beginning. Because she stepped up in every way. If there was something that if there was a ball getting dropped, she picked it up. And even to the point of there were 2 people on set that week who were not friends, that do not like each other, but both of them kind of had to be there. And Caitlyn had this interesting way of making sure that they never actually came into contact with one another. And so I appreciated that. She kind of did some Tetrising with people to have people who didn't like each other avoid each other, and I appreciated that very much. And then at the end of the shoot, when we were all done, Caitlyn was the one who stopped me and was like, "Okay, it's time to get out of, warrior mode. You need to wind down. You need to relax. You need to chill." And she kind of forced me to kind of let go at the end of the shoot. And I'm so grateful to her.
So she was your ship's counselor as well. Then.
She was.
She
really
also
was.
made you eat.
She made me eat. Her and Terry Stanford. Terry Stanford followed me around with peanut butter crackers.
So
be like, or make me drink something.
I wanted to ask Caitlyn a question, and usually I ask people what was the most challenging part of your work on this fan film, but apparently you did so much. I'm going to change the question. What were the 3 most challenging things that you had to do on this fan film? Because I don't think there's just one.
Well, to be honest with you, the character that I was playing, some of the lines were a little bit tricky. The one that I really enjoyed was the kind of poem that I was able to do, which I have written poems, so that actually came naturally. But whenever it came to being mean to Alex, it really kind of broke my heart, to be honest with you. Because she is such a really sweet person. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm being so mean to her.
Well, she stole your starship. She took the captaincy from you.
Yes, and yes, and I understood that, but that was kind of the first challenge. And of course, when Josh, I'm surprised you mentioned this, Josh, the 2 people that weren't getting along, there was one instance, it was so funny because they were going towards each other. So I literally took one and I pushed him into an entryway.
Let's go this way.
Away. Yes, let's go this way. You got it. Into a dead end to let the other person go by.
What's really neat about this is you had a fan film where people who cannot stand each other were both working on it, and somehow it worked out. You know what I mean? You had a fan film where it was shot at neutral zone with costumes provided by Warp 66 Studios. That's crazy how cool that is, because there were so many times that I've been on these various sets that I've heard people go, imagine what we could do if we all worked together. And that's been what I've been pushing for since the beginning with all of this, and to get 2 studio owners to come together and collaborate on a fan film was so cool to me. Glenn Wolfe provided the costumes, Ray Tessie's providing the studio, and then we took some pickup shots for the Federation files while we were there. Some B-roll for the Federation files. So it's like there was an interesting little trade going on, and I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that you'd think that 2 different studios, they might compete with each other, and they started working together. And it was a testament to the character of everyone involved, I thought. With regards to Caitlyn's character, the interesting thing is how that started was that we were going to have Tyler play the female version of Mason originally. We were going to have him do it in drag. And Victoria Fox, this was back when she was still around. She didn't really want me to do that. She was like, oh, don't do that. That could be, and so I was like, okay, well, maybe we should actually have a girl play this character. And the character is supposed to be really comical. It's supposed to be a comical thing where when we had, in Ghost Ship, we're making fun of Tyler, you don't know how to talk to women and all this. And I thought it would be funny if Mason was a woman in the Prime universe and hitting on the captain or something, like hitting on Jaconde or whoever. And what I told Warren was, okay, imagine your best friend's little sister has the hots for you. That's what this is. and that's how he played it. That was kind of how I told him to play it. And so Caitlyn's character is so like comical in Crisis. She's like watching Stardates of Our Lives and hitting on Jaconde and just being silly. Like she's silly the whole film. And this is like so the opposite of that. Like this is a serious role. And Caitlyn had to go from on Saturday being silly, Dee Dee Mason, to on Monday, Tuesday, being the antagonist of the film in this, tug of war between Mason and Allenby. She did an amazing job. And part of the reason that it worked out so well for her is because she listened. She was really open. If I had direction for her, if Tyler had direction for her, she was so moldable. And we didn't make this easy on her. And she really rose to the occasion, I thought. I mean, I saw in the comments, in the chat, there were people like, that first officer sucks. She needs to shut up. And it's like, that's exactly how you should feel about her in this film. Like, she's awful.
Rayner would like to have a word with
job.
you. Commander Rayner would like to talk with you. So go ahead and go to his office. And one of the things I wanted to add in regards to having to wrangle keeping a couple people sort of away from each other. Well, there is precedent for that because you had back in Voyager days, Kate Mulgrew and Jerry Ryan. There were several occasions where if they were in the same scene, unless they were on camera at the same time, like standing next to each other, they did their parts separately in that scene. Like Kate would do her lines on the set with Jerry not there, and then they'd switch. She'd leave, she'd come back. I was listening to a audiobook recently about the entire history of Star Trek, and when they got to that part between Kate and Jerry, oh my God, you want to hear about, I hate to use the word cat fight. I mean, do we have anything more modern now to say for that? Maybe not. I don't know, but
that was only in the beginning, though. They ended up becoming good friends. But just so people know, then don't think Kate Mulgrew and Jerry Ryan hated each other. At the beginning, what happened was Kate felt that Jerry had been brought in for one very specific purpose.
Yep.
And
actually, I think it was two very specific purposes.
Two of D, as we like to say.
Cheeto, go to your room.
But no, but the thing is that, and Jerry understood that. I mean, I saw Jerry at a convention once because she had been brought into Dark Skies as well to try to save that mid-season, wasn't able to. And the person who was asking the question said, how does it feel that, to be brought into two series to save them essentially because you look hot? And it was an interesting question. And Jerry said, well, first of all, I actually considered it a compliment that they thought I could single-handedly save a series. I mean, that I chose to take that as my starting point. But she said, I never really saw Voyager as a way of just, sex sells. I really wanted to create a character, and ultimately she did.
She absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was Kate Mulgrew realized that what she was dealing with was not just some, silly blonde bimbo with big boobs, but a really good thespian who knew how to act. And once Kate got over the fact that anytime she was in a scene with Seven, nobody was even paying attention to Janeway because all they could look at was whatever part of Seven was being shown on the camera in the foreground. And ultimately, what they did was they took the silver suit away. And as soon as they did that, and they toned it with the brown suit or the blue suit, that was a much easier costume, obviously, for Jerry to wear, but also for other people to appear in scenes with her, because she just wasn't taking all the focus away from the other actor or the actress. So that's why Kate was initially really struggling with Jerry and doing scenes with her. But the scenes became so good that within half a season, Kate and Jerry were really, they had an amazing synergy from what I heard. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I've just heard that they became very good friends on set.
Actually, just to piggyback on that, as a Voyager not super fan, that's actually one of the relationships that I actually thought was really well done in in Voyager was Janeway and Seven, because when you first start out, you really feel like it could be really cringe, like mommy daughter, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it really turned into more of a mentor mentee, like mother adult daughter type thing, like where it wasn't just like, oh, I'm helping this child walk. No, like she's like an adopted mother who is actually taking this person under her wing more as an adult, not as a kid.
And the real tragedy of that is that Janeway didn't get to, that Kate didn't get to be the one in Picard season 3 to promote Seven to Captain of the Enterprise. I mean, imagine if she'd been there in that scene. And it's a crime against humanity that Kate was not in Picard season 3.
But she
And it
got
would
her
have
own
been just
series.
one scene, really. I mean,
Yeah.
It's too expensive, and the thing is also Kate does not look like the Janeway from Prodigy. I'm sorry to say, Kate is a lovely woman and a wonderful actress and whatever, but she has definitely gotten older in many ways. So
yeah, but I think
Tim Russ was kind of wrinkly,
I was about to say,
People age.
Picard season 3 still takes place 20 years, I think, after Prodigy, because the Prodigy takes place in 2080 something, right?
Yeah, it's about 20 years later.
So there's still 20 years. I mean, I think they could have made it. I think if they wanted to put...
What I heard was just that Terry Matalas asked for that, and Kurtzman said no.
probably because of the amount of money they'd have to spend for a very short period of time.
If you don't want me adding, the way they aged her up at the end of Voyager, the final episode, she doesn't look anything like her older version from that episode. So probably that's one of the reasons why they didn't want to use her as well.
It's very possible. I want to steer this back to the Mort de Guerre because I wanted to bring up another couple of things about shared resources, and obviously Frank brings his wig to this and his Romulanness. We are
in my ears.
And his ears, the deadly ears,
and his costume that he wore was his costume.
Yeah, and I mean, Frank is his own, resource bank. I mean, he is just he brings with him whatever it is that you need in your fandom. It's just, and of course, so does Vance. I mean, Vance has every costume ever created for Star Trek and then some. So you have to have a little Vance in there too. But I also wanted to point out something else, and this kind of affected me personally. Not only did you have resources from Glenn Wolfe of Warp 66, but you also ended up having a resource that I didn't even know you were going to have when you asked me to work on this. From Dominion Media, more specifically from Gary Davis. And so Jefferson, do you have that picture that I showed you? Okay. So all right. So Josh needed a Sulu scope. He needed a close up of a Sulu scope because the one that he had taken from the studio, the Warp 66 studio, not Warp 66, the
Neutral Zone, the one at Neutral Zone.
Does not look very, very good, and he needed a Sulu scope. And I get a text from him in the morning asking me if I can make him a Sulu scope. I'm like, how the frack do you make a Sulu scope? And so this image is what I ended up making for Josh. And interestingly enough, this is from an eBay photo of a Hallmark ornament.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yep. I just took it. I blew it up. I had to smooth it out. I had to get rid of the little hanging thing on the top, a little loop. But I basically did everything I possibly could to make it look, good. A little bit blurry because otherwise, it was blown up from a very small amount. Anyway, I did this for Josh. It took me about 2 hours to get this thing done. I sent it to Josh. He absolutely loved it. You will not see this in the film because no sooner had Josh sent me my 26th viewing of the film, and I went to look at it to see, how my Sulu scope looked, and it's a completely different Sulu scope. I mean, it's a nice looking Sulu scope, but it wasn't mine. You want to take it from here, Josh?
Yeah, what Sulu scope was it?
Okay, so this is a crazy story. I guess you don't have the photo of what we used, but okay. So somehow
you'll have to watch the movie again, guys. You'll have
somehow when FTC stopped filming, The Sulu scope that they used in STC left the set somehow. I don't know how it left the set, but it wasn't there anymore. And so what Ray did is he had one of his volunteers build a new one, and it's the one you see in the film from a lot of angles. Now this has very little to do with the film, but I eventually found out what happened to the Sulu scope that was in STC. Glenn Wolfe has it. I don't know how he got it. I don't remember how he got it, but he has it. And so they've got this Sulu scope that's kind of, it's not that great. And even in the shots where you see it like in wide shots and stuff, I had to like mess with it. I had to give it like a little glowy bit and stuff, so it wasn't so just obviously bad. But I needed this close-up of it. And when I had taken, I have all these stock shots of the view screen that I use. Like I just spent a day shooting nothing but view screen like a year, 2 years ago or something. And so I have like 20 angles of the view screen. And in one of them, there's the Sulu scope is in the foreground, but it's out of focus. And I was like, man, I really want a shot where Caitlyn looks at the Sulu scope and you see these Romulans popping up. But in the angle I have, the scope is out of focus. And I want it to be the opposite. I want the view screen to be out of focus and the scope to be in focus. Well, it's pretty easy to make the view screen out of focus, but you can't make the scope in focus. So first I like tried to draw one, and that was okay. And then Jonathan did the one that he showed me. And then I just see on a random like post that Gary Davis is like making a new one. He's like 3D printing a brand new Sulu scope for Neutral Zone. And I was like, oh my gosh, and it was beautiful. And I just messaged him and I said, I sent him the raw photo and I said, can you take a picture of that Sulu scope from this angle? And he did it with just his phone and sent it back to me. And then I took just a cell phone shot of Gary Davis's 3D printed Sulu scope, colored it and changed it and resized it, and then put the Romulan graphic in there, and boom, it's in the movie. And I think it's only in one place, but yeah, it's in the movie.
And there went my art prop department credit just
Oh,
out the
man.
window.
He tried. I mean, it was good. It was usable, but this was better.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else wants to use it? I still have the graphic. Just email me if you need a Sulu scope, and I'll let you. There you go.
Well, and sometimes that's what we all have to do with these things is kind of crowdsource within each other for uniforms or equipment, things like that. And I wanted to tell Frank this while we're talking about that. So we had a conversation a few months ago about getting me the Scotty's bomber jacket that he wore in Star Trek 3 with the yellow shirt collar. That you have one, and I doubted that I could fit in it at the time, but I think I could now because since December I'm down 120 from the so it's thank you.
I thought I was doing good at 30.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm proud of you.
So I might thank you. So I may fit in it now. That dream may be a reality.
I will send it off, sir. I also have to send you the commander pips.
Right. Yeah. But we had a conversation about that earlier that I had with Steve on an interview we did. It's amazing. You don't really think about it, but just how much the equipment you have or the uniforms you can get or fit in or acquire dictates at what time in the Star Trek timeline your story takes place in, what it's about, who you have, because we don't have access to those resources like Hollywood does. So
when you talk about TOS uniforms, nobody has a better collection of TOS uniforms than Glenn. End of discussion. Glenn he's got, if you go to Warp 66 and you could see all this, he's got boots, he's got tunics, he's got pants. Like the dude is loaded with cool TOS uniforms. Like he is a one-man costuming and art department. And that's the thing, is that every one of us has like a different thing we're awesome at, right? For Glenn, it's costumes and props because that's what interests him. He likes building sets. He likes making props. He likes costumes. And so that's his superpower. Ray's got these amazing sets. He's got the complete set, you know. Frank has Romulan stuff, Romulan costume. There's another guy, Kevin Thomas Dye, who came and he had Romulan outfits and Romulan ears and Romulan guns, and you know, and then you bring in other people like Dan Scanlon and Alan Anderson who are awesome at sound. And so you and Kelly Hodges, who's a wizard at makeup, and Keith Hamilton doing VFX. You bring together all of these people from across fan films. And what happens? The fan films get better. And it doesn't just have to be mine. We can do it for Gary Davis, and we can make Dreadnought Dominion awesome. We can do it for the Federation Files and help out Glenn and Dan, and their film is cool. We can do it for you know, for other tales from the Neutral Zone. We've even over this year brought in 2 first-time fan filmmakers who've never made fan films before, and got a coalition together and helped those people with their projects. So it's like when people share their resources like this, it's awesome. Vance, every fan film that has Vance in it is better. And the funny story about
Vance is like cheese. Cheese makes everything better. Or bacon.
It does.
Bacon makes
Pizza
everything
rolls, not cheese.
Pizza roll.
Come on.
So the
If you've
funny
got a
story-
casserole you need to fix, put some cheese in it. You got it.
Cheese in it.
Yeah.
The funny story with Vance in this film is that as soon as I wrote the script, well, I wanted to put Vance in it. And so the first thing I did was I called Ray and I said, hey, Ray, I really want to have Vance in this. Is that okay with you? And Ray's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, you know. And then I asked Vance if he was willing to be in it. And he was like, okay. Because I felt it was really important that we don't try to portray Allenby as invincible or a Mary Sue. Like, she was a normal person with complex emotions who is handling a situation the best that she could. But when that situation is over, like Pike, like Kirk, like Picard, Allenby was vulnerable. And like, you know, Pike had Dr. Boyce to be vulnerable to. You know, Picard had Counselor Troy. Kirk had Dr. McCoy. And so I wanted that person to be Vance. I wanted it to be a character that I knew that Allenby's character would have respect for. And I couldn't think of anyone else I would want that to be other than Vance. And so when he agreed, I went and wrote the script, and then I sent it to him, and I said, what do you think? And he's like, I love it. And he filmed his part and sent it to me like 20 minutes later.
Wow.
Like 20 minutes later. And
Yeah.
this is like 10 months before we shot the film. He sends me his part, right? And I was like, wow, I didn't really need it yet, but
I got it. Yeah, you know.
Got it.
well, I guess that's done. And so we go and we make the film, and I sent him a cut of it. And he was like, he calls me up and he's like, I forgot I was in this movie.
When we've done some fan film reactions with Vance, like we've had him along for some of our fan film reactions, and Vance, we've come across movies, Star Trek fan films, and Van's like, I'm in this one. He's like he'll come up on the screen and he's so surprised. He's like, oh my God, I'm in this one. I forgot.
He's in so many fan films, he doesn't remember how many fan films he's in anymore.
Since I've gone into partnership with Vance on various things, I find that too. I'll go, when did I film that? I don't know. You just never know where you're going to end up in these films.
Vance is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Jefferson as
You
well.
got that right.
Pardon?
Right. Yeah. There's one that
I've got a
Vance
line for you.
wrote. I wrote a script, and I said I've got a short story here because I wanted to start doing more fan films, and I started working with Jim Williams and Commodore Productions. Started working with Steve Harris in Harris Film Productions.
Mine right here.
And yeah, and
That's what my time do.
I wrote something, gave Vance, what do you think of this? You know, is there something here? And he grew that and turned it into something that we're going to be able to do more with. And in September when we do filming down at is it Warp 66? I think is where we're at. Yeah.
Warp 66.
Yeah, gonna take a few minutes off to the side and do this shoot, which reading the script and what he's included was like, wow, this is great, and very honored to do that and to feel like, you know, I can really be a part of this, because creating a character for films is something I always wanted to do, and I came up with the character Preston Cisco. Because I kind of had to reconcile that when people see me, they're going to see, okay, African American male, no hair, goatee, he's got to be playing Cisco. Well, you know, not really. But see, the thing is that most of the fan film creators out there are doing a lot of TOS based films, because that's where we kind of have more of those sets that are out there to use. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I make myself able to be in more of a chance to be in things, but also reconcile this whole, what you would think people would expect to see. And I said, I've got it. I came up with an ancestor for Benjamin Sisko, his great grandfather, new character just created. And it like that checks all the boxes in the TOS time frame, kind of has that, you know, that look that you end up seeing. So it all works perfectly. And so it's going to be great to be a part of that.
Preston,
Nice,
what
dude, I can't
uniform
wait.
am I supposed to be in for this one?
You got to talk to the producer. That's Vance.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
I don't know how
didn't tell
Vance
me this
keeps up
time.
with. I don't know how Vance keeps up with all of the things he does. Like
yeah.
he's managing everybody else's fan film, and he'll have like 4 or 5 films going at once, and he'll be like, "Hey, I need this or that." I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he keeps it all straight. You know,
I'm so glad he retired.
Yeah. Twice, right?
You
Twice.
know how
So
it
far,
works
twice.
is he writes for me, and
Yeah.
and I take the heavy lift. That's the thing, is he doesn't want to take the heavy lift, so he'll work on the projects, and you know, like Jason and I do our heavy lifting here, and he just writes, and then.
But think about how many. Again, we brought this up before, but how many of us are here because of him? Probably
Yeah.
Everybody here, with the exception of Jonathan and Caitlyn, is here because of Vance.
And me,
Yeah.
because I was before Vance.
Yeah, right.
BV,
Correct.
yes.
I
Right.
started
But
Dreadnought
Vance had a lot
before
to do
Vance,
with
yeah.
bringing you back.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
You know, what he's doing right now is probably the most altruistic thing I've ever seen a filmmaker do. I mean, to have a guy who's built a YouTube channel with a subscriber base, but then at the same time has built a network of like music people, CG people, editors, whatever else, costumes. And he stopped making it about himself a long time ago, and now he's just helping everybody else make their project. Like, I come from an indie film background, and I can't emphasize to you how abnormal that is. Like, I've never seen a filmmaker do that before. And he has become like a filmmaker who facilitates the journey for other filmmakers. And that's amazing. Like, when he always like laughs when I say that he's my inspiration. No, he really is. I never thought I would be a good fan filmmaker, but he was more courageous than me, and he was the person who pushed me to do this.
Yes. Well, and that's great to hear. And I want to go ahead and wrap us up here, because we've coming up on an hour, and I know all of you probably have lives outside of Star Trek and have things to catch up on. But
What?
Actually,
blasphemy.
I do
Jefferson-
want to mention one
Oh,
last
yeah.
thing,
Mhm.
and that's very important, and that's Alex.
Yeah.
Alexandra Rexford. What an amazing, she makes this movie in so many ways. And it's hard to really express what I put on her, because we're talking about asking somebody to play a character based on your daughter, like what kind of pressure is that?
Mhm.
And she stepped up and she played all these different versions of the character in Crisis, and then carries this version, this Prime Universe version, is very different than the Avalon version, into this Prime Universe story. She captures every single aspect of what it is to be a captain. The confidence, the self-doubt that you're hiding, the what I call the captain's gaze, just this I'm in charge, I'm contemplating the situation. The good of the ship is the only thing that matters. She did everything right. And she was a warrior for the 4 days that we were shooting down in Kingsland right beside Caitlin. Um, Caitlin, I'll ask you, what do you think of Alex and what she brought to this?
Well, as stated, Alex is definitely a sweetheart, and she's a fantastic actress. I mean, she played the character straight down to everything that was just needed. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And I would love to work with her again.
And she has more material coming up. She's got one more film that we're going to release with her in it. The thing about Alex is that she has, and I don't want to really, just for the sake of her privacy say much, but she's moved on to a more important phase of her life now. And, but even with that approaching her, she did everything she could to honor her commitment to me, to Avalon, to this film. She shot every frame of film that we asked her to shoot, and she honored her commitment and wrapped, and she was a warrior every step of the way, from doing her makeup over and over again in the cold while we were shooting Crisis, to shooting her part with Vance right up to the very second that she had to leave to go catch her plane, to doing pickup shots in October, to doing a final shot a few weeks ago, and then jumping in the car and heading off to the next phase of her life. I mean, she was amazing. She was everything you could ever ask for in a lead actor. She was respectful. She was professional. She was kind. She did everything by the book, and the film world needs 1,000 of her, because she's an amazing person, and I can't say enough wonderful things about what she did. I felt her performance makes this film. It was on another level. She and Caitlin together made this film from a performance standpoint. They took direction from me. They took direction from Tyler. Now, Tyler, to briefly mention a little bit about him, when we wrapped the Avalon phase of the shoot, he went and had a really big wrap party in Jason Spriggs' hotel room until 5 a.m. And then we started shooting this film the next day. And so he's coming into the hotel room. We shared a room. He's coming in at 5 a.m. as I'm getting up to go to set. And he showed up at like 9 a.m. He made it till about noon on the first day of this film, and then collapsed in the captain's quarters and slept for about 4 hours. But he was there all day, the second day, helping out. But as far as running the set, it was myself, and it was Tyler, and it was Caitlin. And man, we had a blast. I'd do it 1,000 times again. It was a great experience. And all I can say is humbly thank you to all the people that worked to make this happen. Whether it's Ed Oborowski for picking up script supervisor when Tyler passed out, or helping us with the hotel rooms, or Caitlin doing everything she did, Kelly doing makeup, Frank bringing all his stuff with him, Keith Hamilton with the VFX, like Ray Tessie trusting us to shoot in his studio, Glenn Wolfe coming down on his own dime and bringing all those costumes with him, Jonathan letting me annoy him for 6 months. I mean, just all these people who gave of themselves. This isn't my film. This is your film. You guys made this movie. It's your movie, and I'm so proud of it and all of you and the job that you did.
Jonathan, you had a closing thought for us as we run?
This is going to make everybody watch the film again. So either you're welcome or I'm sorry. But there was one other thing, and the first thing that I ever reported to Josh, Caitlyn's costume only had one stripe, only one braid. She was wearing a lieutenant's shirt the entire time. Nobody caught it. I don't know why.
Ruined the movie.
Caught it.
I'm not watching
And
it.
of course, people are going to notice this. And I said, Josh, you've got to figure out a way to get a second stripe on that.
Yeah.
And at first, Josh was like, we'll just let the smart kids figure it out. And then Josh realized, pretty quickly, no, everybody's going to notice it because they call her commander and everything. And Josh managed to fix every scene except for one. And you guys get to have a scavenger hunt now to find the one scene in the entire film where you only see one braid on it.
I'm going back to look.
You are cruel.
I am cruel. But I found everyone. That was the first thing I ever did for Josh. I listed every time code where you can only see one stripe, and then he fixed a bunch of them. I was like, no, I can still see it here, and you cut time codes again. So anyway, there's only one spot where you can still see one, but it's okay because it's there, so it's provable.
It's very tiny.
You can't play with Jonathan anymore.
Well,
guys, I hate to bring out the hook, but I do have to run. Actually, me myself. But yeah, Joshua, if you got one last thing for us.
Well, it was just that like we said, Glenn did costumes, and Glenn had left the day before, or no, he had left that morning, and so there was no ability to change because like when Glenn was there for Avalon, like we had a part where Tyler like ripped his tunic and stuff during the fight scene, and Glenn's like, "Here, I'll be back in a minute," and went and sewed it up and rescued it. Well, he was gone by the time we started. He left us everything we needed, but he was gone, and so it was like, oh, crap, we needed another stripe. Well, there was nothing we could do, and Jonathan was like, you should fix that in post. I'm like, I'm not going to fix a stripe in post. And then I thought about it for a minute. I was like, well, I could do that. And I tried it, and, thank God it worked. So, yeah, we were able to find a way to, fix ears and fix stripes and 1,000 other things I'm not going to bring up. Luis Sanchez ripped his tunic while we were filming. He had a big rip, the science officer. We haven't talked about him, and he was amazing in this. He ripped his tunic, and I fixed it. I fixed his tunic in post.
Awesome, excellent job. Well, I'm going to do some final thanks for our sponsors of this live stream tonight: Neutral Zone Studios, No Budget Productions, Filk Fair Productions, Harris Film Productions, Commodore Productions, Nature's Hunger, Fan Film Factor, Airy Studios, NerdTube, and Avalon Universe. Thank you all for coming out tonight and sitting with us. Looking forward again to seeing more collaboration from all of you. And for our audience, just want to tell you, thank you for coming out and sitting with us tonight. And as always, everyone, live long and prosper.
Take care.